people joining as they come in. All right, so I'm just going to share my screen a little bit just so we can really quickly go over a rebrand point. We are live. We're now rebranded, so we're now STQRY. I just wanted to bring everyone's attention to the new builder login before we get started. So, you know, eventually we are going to shut down the OnSell and the My Tours websites. It won't be anytime soon, but it's going to happen. So when you go to log into new projects, just kind of get in the habit of going to the new website, and you can see here, you'll be able to log into all of the old builders there. So that's all there for you. You don't have to go to the old sites anymore. And then you'll also see, which a lot of our clients use quite a bit for that online help. You'll see a new chat function down here as well. And it will go still directly to our team. And we will be able to get in touch with that way. You'll be able to get in touch with us as well. So I am going to get started. I just want to thank Toby Bloom so much for being here. We are really excited to talk a little about this app. The case study we did, it got a lot of views and people really enjoyed it. I mean, you guys see 300 million visitors per year. You're saying that you guys are seeing a lot more right now with everyone just kind of trying to get out in the outdoors. So you're the National Program Manager of Travel, Tourism, and Interpretation with the United States Forest Service. So that's kind of how this app project got started. You know, just that interpretation, the case study, if anyone had seen it, the case study specifically talked about the transitions within the U.S. Forest Service and kind of how things have transitioned in terms of how you interpret this content and the outdoors and how you educate. So it's really, really cool case study. If you haven't read it, it's a little bit more in depth, but right now I'm going to go over just some features and functionalities in the app. As we all know, we really like to go over those features and how to use them in case you're missing anything and how to really utilize those platforms. And then I'm going to have Toby, who's on the line, just talk a little bit about how the app program got started, kind of how it's running, and how it's benefited the organization. So just to kind of go in, you'll see the QR code here. You can scan that just to download the app, or it is a web app, so you can go to usfs.onsell.com. So the Forest Service app is essentially, it's an all you need to know guide. So if you were to download this, we are getting every single forest in the portal app right now, but basically forests would build out their own individual apps, but it all goes within one app. So as a user, forests would essentially get to control their own content, but it all would go in this one app in which you can download, and then you kind of have whichever forest you want to go look up, you go to that forest in the app, you look it up, and then you're able to see you know, general information, mapping, hiking. It's really just a wealth of information, and I will show you some cool ways that other forests within the app are using it. So here you can just kind of see you have regular, you know, permits and passes, anything you need to know for trip planning, news and alerts, which is a really great one. You'll also get push notifications from sites. If a site has specifically a closing or a safety notification, you'll get those right away, which is really, really big in terms of, you know, getting that information out there directly as soon as possible. And then also passes and permits, any type of pricing for the passes, anything that you'll need to know when you go. And then also some of the apps actually have contact information. So you'd actually be able to just go right in the app and find out who you need to contact for what, cabins and camping ground information as well. For Ozark is a really interesting one. This is kind of like a special case. So they use the app for that general information as well as hiking information, but they also use the app for an employee portal. So they hide that employee portal behind a keypad, and people would type in the code to get to their employee portal. And this is another way that maybe you wouldn't think to essentially use an app, and it really works well for them, and is definitely an exception that we have here. It's not something that everyone does, and it's worked really, really fantastically. So here is what El Yunque does. El Yunque is one of my favorite examples in terms of badges and quizzes and education and education centers. So they specifically built out an education center on the app. You can earn badges by answering questions, and I was talking, for anyone on the line, I was talking to Toby. earlier that I actually took one of the quizzes, and I did not do as well as I would have thought. I learned a lot. So, I mean, it really ranges in terms of information. The one great part about this is, you know, we were talking about that forest etiquette. So you might not know exactly what you need to do when you go to a forest or when you visit, but specifically for this app, it kind of walks you through that. And I had gone through some of the forest etiquette, and I did really learn a lot. And now when I go to the forest or I go camping, I will now know exactly what to do. So this is really fun game just for kids or for anyone who's just learning about Unyunke. And this is something that and you can put in any app really. And we talk about the badges and the quiz functions all the time. And then you can also do surveys as well to get feedback immediately, or a lot of times people do surveys in the Forest app just if there's safety information. So if a hiker were to be on a trail and all of a sudden a tree falls down or something, they can go into the app and they can send in a survey question. And it's just like, oh, just so you know, this needs picking up or this needs this. And then the Forest Service can obviously get to that immediately and can get that information and feedback sooner rather than later. So another really good, a good feature. And then last but not least, I just wanted to show you how the web app kind of worked a little bit. But here you can see Cleveland. Cleveland has 10 different languages and really great mapping. This one is really, really great for interpretation content just for the purposes of the different languages and the content that it has within it. So another way that kind of it's all evolving is adding those languages and being able to service all of these visitors who are coming to the forests and not just, you know, US citizens. So another really good way to kind of use this app. So that is actually all I'm going to share because I don't want to spoil anything. So I'm going to pass it over to Toby just to discuss a little bit about you know, how the program got started and how it is working for them.
Great, thanks Genevieve. Well, we actually started using the app after 3 of our forests sort of did a pilot project where they developed their own apps. And we found that it helped solve a lot of the issues that we had in terms of being able to update content quickly, being able to get messages out to our visitors, and also for our rangers and our public affairs officers, the people right there on the ground at the forest, to really be able to curate the information. Traditionally, with our websites and all of our other IT content, it sort of needs to be channeled through our web managers. And so that takes a lot of time. But because the app building platform is so easy to understand and intuitive, this really allows our folks in the field to build content directly without having to go to our IT experts. And that's really been the beauty of the app. So after we had those 3 pilots, we signed an agreement for all of our forests. And it's voluntary to sign on. And so our forests kind of found out about it through word of mouth and a little bit of internal marketing, and folks are joining. And obviously with COVID, we've had renewed interest and more forests wanting to join because it's a way for us to safely provide information to our visitors while keeping socially distant. But also the real-time information is huge. Like when Genevieve was talking about the push notifications. Anybody in California right now knows that there are a bunch of fires going on. And so for us to be able to provide real-time information to our visitors about safety issues, if there are road closures, fires that they need to avoid, even heat warnings. We have several trails on our forests that are as hot or hotter than Death Valley. And so we need to make sure that our visitors are prepared for what they're going to encounter safety-wise. So we need to make sure folks have water and sunscreen and hats. Or sometimes we need to ask people not to go to certain places for their own safety. We've also had folks use the push notifications when our seasonal hiring begins. And so it's been really useful, and it is not complicated. And so folks that are not super tech savvy are still able to add content and change the app and provide information to our visitors. So it's been a really wonderful experience. And we continue to have more forests join every day. And remember, these are tree huggers. These are not tech folks. And so if tree huggers can do it, pretty much anybody can do it.
And could you just tell a little bit about prior to like the app and technology, kind of how you guys were interpreting content prior?
Yeah, so we were doing a lot of traditional interpretation where we do person to person interpretation, where we'll have somebody in a visitor center out on a trail that's providing information to the public. We also have traditional wayside signs so that if you know, come to an overlook, we tell you what you're looking at and why it's important. And we also, in our visitor centers, provide information. We also have bulletin boards and pamphlets and brochures, but what we were finding is, especially with interpretive stations in the outdoors, they can get damaged very easily, both from people and also from from the weather elements. And so this gives us an opportunity to provide updated real-time information without having to worry about maintaining infrastructure within our national forest. Also, it's just a lot more accessible. We know that anybody going onto the forest can download the app. We don't necessarily know who's going to pass by a certain bulletin board or if people are going to stop at the visitor center. So it provides us a lot more coverage than the traditional means that we had been using. And really, I think what's so neat about it is that it gives our rec officers and our public affairs officers and our interpretive specialists and our visitor information specialists, they have an opportunity to really kind of broadcast the content that they think is important for the place that folks are visiting. And they're the ones who know the forest best. And so for them to really be able to put a personal touch on the information that we're providing to the public makes it so much nicer for the visitor. They're really getting the good stuff. And it feels much more personal.
Yeah, that's it. And so in terms of like COVID and kind of how it's changed how people are interacting, do you see like maybe making any, I guess, changes to the apps in terms of COVID? You know, a lot of times people are putting up like the screens for people, like the intros and the information. Are you talking with any of the forests on what they could possibly do within the apps to kind of just let people know or give them safety information in terms of COVID?
Yes, several of our forests actually have sort of like a know before you go kind of filter that you have to go through in order to get to the recreation information. And so I know that they're using that information right now. I think with COVID, it's really hyper local in terms of, you know, what the local guidelines are and you know, numbers of people and whether spaces are open or closed. And so again, you know, this has really given us the ability to provide super local information just for one particular unit, or even maybe just for one ranger district. We're also having huge increases in visitation because of COVID. Like we were talking about before, you know, maybe folks who spent a lot more of their time sort of whatever they enjoyed doing inside. You know, if you were someone who, you know, wanted to go to the salon or you wanted to go to the movies, those things really aren't available right now. And so everybody's going outside. And so what that means is you have a lot of new visitors to the forest and new recreationists. And so it's good for us to be able to provide information to folks who may not know the traditional etiquette of being on trails or other, you know, wilderness areas and things like that all have their own sets of rules. But there's also brand new etiquette that we're all sort of learning and making up as we're going along. And so, you know, forests have had to really develop their own sets of guidelines. And so the app has given them an opportunity to provide those guidelines and information to just the visitors to their particular forest. Because the forest the next state over is probably going to have different regulations.
Right, that makes sense. Yeah, and I like that being able to kind of update it immediately with like that new etiquette as things go on, especially with COVID. I'm sure like there's certain things that are changing kind of every day, especially with
Exactly.
more and more visitation. I do know that some forests, a lot of times, were using the app when COVID first happened and everything kind of had to shut down. They were using it to also let people know that they were closed and
Mhm.
that you couldn't come on site, and then also let them know that they had reopened. I guess in terms of the app in general, have you gotten specific feedback both from users and from the forest, the app managers who are creating the content?
Yes, absolutely. And I will say that a lot of the functionality of the apps has come from the field. People are using the app to solve problems that they have. like you talked about the employee portal. Obviously, right now, it's very difficult for us to do employee onboarding and orientation. We can't put 20 people in a room together right now. And so to be able to use the app as a virtual means for orienting people to their new work, our seasonal employees are just about wrapping up, but back in April, May is when we bring on our seasonal employees. And so to be able to provide a way for them to get the information they needed without being in close contact with others was really, really helpful. Most of the feedback that I see from the public, besides, this is great, I never knew about this, it's wonderful to see, we hear from people who are like, how come such and such national forest doesn't have an app yet? And so that's part of what I'm working on. I would really love for all of our forests to have an app available, because even though, some of our folks that work on forests might be tree huggers and might want to get away from technology while they're on the forest, we know that the vast majority of people use their smartphones, to get the information that they need in order to travel where they're going. And so we understand the value of it, and the forests that have already developed apps have been really happy, both with the functionality that you all have helped us create, and also with the already existing functionality with the app builder and how simple that is. It's been a really successful partnership.
Yeah, and we love being able to work with the forest. I mean, every forest is different. Every single forest has different sites and different trails, and it's a really cool. I mean, the reason for the portal app being so awesome as well is, you go into the portal app and you have access to all of these different places, and it's just fun. You can kind of explore. You can look through all the forests and plan. I always tell people, when everything was closed during COVID, I was like, go on and look at the forest, figure out what you might want to go and take a trip and go see with someone. And it is a good social distancing activity if it's not a crowded area. And obviously some of them are so big, it would be difficult for them to be super crowded.
Right.
So,
well, and it's also very interesting because throughout COVID, our national forests have been open. We've had specific developed recreation sites that have been closed.
mm-hmm.
And so for a visitor who comes to the same spot over and over and over again, and that spot happened to be closed, the app let them know, yes, this national forest is open. This one tiny place that you usually go is not open, but here's where else you can go on the forest and still have a great time.
Yeah, that's really cool. And we did get one question, and it's one that we get a lot, is some of your forests are remote. Do you have any issues with cell towers not existing?
Many of our forests are remote. And so what we really try to do is when a forest develops an app, we also try to make sure that they're doing marketing so that folks can download the app to their phone before they get to the forest. Because if the app is already on your phone, there's a lot of functionality, even when you don't have a cell phone signal. And that is something, on a lot of our forests, obviously the remoteness is part of the reason folks are going there. But, being able to find yourself on a GPS enabled map, even without cell phone service, that's a huge safety benefit. And so a lot of that functionality still exists as long as you download the app before you get to the forest.
Yeah, and that's what we get that question with a lot of parks and forests that sign up as well. As we tell them, especially users, if you download the app prior, the app will actually work with no Wi-Fi and no cell service. The GPS, so the Google map won't work on there, but all of the geo alerts will. So you'll still get alerts as to where you are when you get there. And that's been that is some feedback that we've received as well, is the fact that it works, without Wi-Fi and without cell service is a really big point for hikers and for people who are in those remote spots without service.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like we have any more questions coming through. I guess my only other question for you would just be, future wise, where do you see the app going and the program going? And I guess, what is your vision for it?
Well, like I said, I would love for all of our national forests to have their own app. I think the more that we can communicate with the public, the better we are at providing the services that people need. And, really at the end of the day, for me, what it's about is getting people to join our mission of being conservation stewards of our, public lands. And in a time right now where people are really recognizing the benefit of having green space to go to, I think if we can create an entire network where all of our forests have this app and we're able to provide real-time information and people are able to communicate back to us, the more communication that we can create with our visitors, the better. And this has been such a great tool for that. So to be able to use it for that, and then in the future, maybe to be able to use it for making management decisions. We can figure out, through some of the data analytics where people are spending most of their time. We do get feedback through the app, like you said, if there's something wrong with a piece of our infrastructure. We rely on our public to sort of be our eyes and ears in the field as well when we can't be out somewhere. So I really am looking forward to when we are using those analytics to be making, management decisions.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, and that is one of the major benefits, is just being able to just connect with your users, not tomorrow, not next week, but right now, right this minute. And that's really going on. Well, thank you so much. I don't see any other questions coming through. We'll put this up on our YouTube channel. You're such a wealth of information. So it was really great getting to kind of pick your brain about the app and the portal app. So thank you so much for just taking the time and coming on and speaking a little bit about it.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure. It's been so great working with you all for the past 4.5 years. And I know that, the relationship will continue to grow. And so thank you guys for having me.
Thanks, Toby. It was
Sure.
fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.
My
Thank
pleasure.
you for joining.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.